In recent years, the harlequin, also known as the Asian lady beetle or the harlequin lady beetle, sometimes even called the ninja lady beetle, has been a primary driving force behind various peculiar insect-related stories published by the media. I've heard so many stories about how Asian lady beetles have bitten people, that they bite, that they attack, that they're nasty, that they're bad. I've heard countless stories about Asian lady beetles, but are they truly that frightening? Let's investigate. Sorry for my red face, I got a bit sunburned while looking for lady beetles recently. In this film canister, I have 5 specimens of the Asian lady beetle, or to be precise, Harmonia axyridis. That's its scientific name. Interestingly, in Poland we have another species from the Harmonia genus, and it's called Harmonia quadripunctata. That's a different matter, and it's a bit different, but alright, let's not focus on it now. What do ladybugs look like? I think every child knows that, and every adult knows it too. They are typically small, oval insects with contrasting colors like red and black, black and red, or yellow and black, and have spots on their bodies. And everything would be fine if these ladybugs stayed within their normal range of occurrence. Unfortunately, that's not the case with the Asian ladybug. Let's start with some basics. The Asian ladybug, that is Harmonia axyridis, is a species whose natural range is East Asia. That's why we call it Asian here, because it comes from Asia, right? Genius! But it just so happens that people really don't like aphids. Aphids are tiny little bugs that harm our plants, and everyone knows that ladybugs eat aphids. Combining the information provides a straightforward method for bringing a new, potentially harmful and invasive ladybug species to the region. And as it turns out, in Europe, ladybugs were first introduced in Ukraine. Then they were also in Belarus, and the first time they were observed as naturally occurring was probably in France, then Greece, and so on and so on. Until in 2006, it reached Poland. And since 2006, we've been observing the expansion of this entire ladybug population here. To introduce you a bit to the topic of ladybugs, because everyone knows the ladybug called the 7 spot, and it has a long and difficult scientific name, which is Coccinella septimpunctata. Yes, really, ladybugs have terrible scientific names, because all these names refer to the number of spots on their wing covers, so it's a bit dramatic. We have the 7-spot ladybug, and some people also know, for example, the 2-spot ladybug. Those exist too, but as it turns out, the Polish entomofauna of ladybugs is incredibly diverse, and the global entomofauna of ladybugs is just out of this world. Now, I'm not merely referring to the diverse spots found on the nearly 80 Polish ladybug species. Some, like the tiny yellow ones with black dots, have particularly unique patterns. So if you ever come across something like that, it turns out that this kind of ladybug is called krosla in Polish. And there are an awful lot of these ladybugs, and many of them are very similar to each other. These differences are really marginal, but the thing is that practically most of our ladybugs have at least a few, if not several dozen, different color forms. Ladybugs are probably the most variable beetles in terms of color and appearance that I know. No other example comes to mind. So now we more or less know what's going on with Polish ladybugs. Going back to the harlequin ladybug, I haven't told you yet how I got these ladybugs. I found 5 of them in just 3 minutes. If you know where to look, you could easily find 100 in that same amount of time. These are definitely the most common ladybugs in Poland right now. They're everywhere, there are tons of them, but I decided that since I had a free Tuesday, where would I go? Out into the field, of course. I'll take a walk, go on a little trip, see how it went. I went closer to Wrocław today to see what I can find. It's unbelievably hot. Nice, I like this kind of weather. Alright, my dear friends, we're here. This is the meadow you might remember from the grasshopper video, and I can already see that I came at the perfect time, and I'll show you why in a moment. Look, here in the bushes, if you take a closer look, it should be in the center of the frame now, that's right. Do you see it? This is a big, very beautiful female wasp spider, but what's more, she has caught something, and that something is none other than the Asian lady beetle, or Harmonia axyridis. And this is a beautiful proof that spiders are our great friends, so that's one less Asian lady beetle. The lady beetle has a unique pattern resembling our 7-spot ladybird, but it's not. It's still moving. See? It's still fighting. So this female caught it relatively recently. Apparently the lady beetle's defense didn't help. By the way, this spider is a beautiful, wonderfully colored female. The lady beetle is still moving its leg. It doesn't take... Oh, maybe we can still feed it. That's a great idea. We'll bring it something to eat. And that's beautiful. Alright, since the wild spider has been fed, now we're looking for a live Asian ladybug. Yes. There shouldn't be a big problem with that, since there are a lot of them here, and generally they're everywhere. It's like when I'm not looking for them, I find plenty, but when I actually want to find one, it usually doesn't work out. Listen, I found something interesting, something I haven't seen in Poland before, although I know it exists here. Not for long, but it does exist. And that tiny insect is right here, exactly where my finger is pointing. I don't know if you can see it, but it's walking along the stem. Listen, it's clever enough to position itself opposite the stem from me, making it difficult to record. But let's switch to macro and see. Can you see it now? It's centered in the frame. This, my friends, is a true bug from the Homoptera suborder, which has a very interesting Polish name, and it's called Kolkorok bezoniak. Just a dozen years ago, this didn't occur in Poland at all. Now, it does occur here, and what's interesting about it is that it has horns on its pronotum. I don't want to annoy it because it can run away quickly. Oh, the ant will annoy it too. Surprisingly, I found it here, unaware it lived in this area. These creatures are amazing, with a spine that points backward. A really cool, incredibly looking insect. Does anyone know what it's called? This insect found in Poland has a Polish name and striking black and red stripes. Let me know in the comments and we'll make a little riddle out of it. Of course, I'll pin the comment with the correct name. And here it is, my friends. We didn't have to wait long after all. There are plenty of them. Right in front of you is a very pretty Asian ladybug, also known as Harmonia axiridis. What's more, look, this is a very, very interesting color form because not only is it completely black with two large red spots, which are quite common forms, but what's interesting is that on these red spots, it also has smaller black dots. This ladybug has many color forms, but this one is particularly intriguing. We're taking some macro photos, then leaving quickly because the heat is deadly. That's exactly how I got my first ladybug, followed by a second, third, fourth, and fifth. Each one is unique. And that only proves the statement I gave you earlier, that Asian ladybugs, and not just Asian ones, but many others too, are incredibly variable. Let me give you an example here. This is a chart showing different forms of one and the same species, and of course it's the harlequin. Now let's get to the meat of the matter, which is the main topic, those ladybug bites, and why we don't like them so much, and why they bother us. Well, first of all, it's because they bite. I mean, you know, humans aren't a natural meal for ladybugs, let's be honest, it just doesn't make sense. The natural meal for ladybugs is aphids, which we don't like, so it's actually good that ladybugs eat aphids. Both adult ladybugs, small beetles, and their larvae, which many of you have sent photos of and were surprised by their appearance, feed on aphids. So yes, this is what a ladybug larva looks like. Yes, ladybug larvae are also predatory and can eat aphids or other tiny insects. So generally, if they only ate aphids, everything would be fine. And precisely because they are predators, when it comes down to it and a ladybug decides it wants to bite our skin, it will be able to do it. Because predators usually have sharp, and that's first of all, and very well adapted mandibles for biting. And these ladybugs really do have mandibles, and it's normal that they can just nip us. Will this have any long-term consequences? Probably not, but it's worth realizing that ladybugs are, I would say, poisonous insects. That means, for example, birds don't like them because ladybugs secrete a special substance with a distinctive smell, which I think everyone knows. And if a ladybug leaves a yellow spot on your finger or another part of your body, no, the ladybug didn't, in quotation marks, poop, because that's the story I usually hear. That if a ladybug drops that substance, then it pooped or peed or did something else, or maybe even threw up. No, it's none of those things. What it releases is nothing other than hemolymph, which is, in other words, insect blood, and in this case, ladybug blood. So it releases its own blood, which contains certain chemical compounds that can be irritating to the skin, and they also have that characteristic smell, right? Right? That yellow liquid just, well, it stinks. Let's be honest, it's not a pleasant smell. So yes, ladybugs can, in case of danger from what's called the femorotibial gland, if I remember correctly, release this strange substance to make themselves unpalatable to birds or other potential predators that might want to eat a ladybug. So that's one reason why we don't like ladybugs. Yes, they can bite us, which is interesting because I've never heard of local ladybug species like Polish 7-spotted or 2-spotted ladybugs biting people. Well, apparently these ones are just fierce and not to be messed with. A ladybug being a predator can actually eat another ladybug. Seriously. If the larva of this ladybug meets a smaller larva of another ladybug, it will simply end with the smaller larva being eaten. And here we come to another interesting fact, because since the harlequin is quite a large ladybug for Polish standards, it's still a tiny beetle, right? But for a ladybug, it's big. In our native fauna, we have only one species of ladybug that is larger than it. That's Anatis oscillata, called ochatka in Polish. And that's a really big ladybug. It reaches about a centimeter in length. I've come across it a few times in my life, and it really stands out because of its size. It's a big ladybug, especially compared to, I don't know, the seven-spotted one or something like that. The eyed ladybug could definitely eat a harlequin, so the eyed ladybugs win. Secondly, why is it undesirable in our fauna? Some might argue that since it eats aphids, what's the issue with it? It's fine, I don't mind. That's true. But on the other hand, it's so invasive and spreads so easily. In good conditions, a ladybug's development only takes 2 weeks. Isn't that amazing? Ladybugs develop from egg to adult in just 2 weeks. Like most beetles, they are capable of flight. So for example, biological barriers like small mountain ranges don't hinder it. And when we add all this up, we have a simple recipe for an invasive alien species that spreads instantly and, in very extreme cases, can displace our native ladybugs. In other words, this Asian ladybug can get rid of our native ladybug and the seven-spotted ladybug. And we wouldn't want that because we like our ladybugs, right? I wouldn't want that either. After all, that was basic knowledge about insects in elementary school, right? That we have ladybugs. Oh, one more thing, because this is actually funny, and from what I've observed, a lot of people don't really realize where ladybugs have their eyes. Because I asked a few people, pointing at a picture of a ladybug, okay, but where do they have their eyes? And most of those people pointed at those 2 white spots. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Those 2 white spots are nothing more than just the coloring of the pronotum, which is a part of the thorax. However, ladybugs have eyes on both sides of their tiny little head, and those eyes, man, it's even hard to... No, okay, you can actually see them. They're really tiny. Anyway, the takeaway to remember is that those 2 white spots on a ladybug are not its eyes. And that's all for now, my friends. Let me know what you think about ladybugs. If you've ever been bitten, or if they've tried to bite you. Because from what I know, if a ladybug bites you, generally nothing happens. However, it can irritate your skin, and if you add the fluid they release, which is hemolymph, it can lead to some inflammation or rashes or something like that. I've heard stories like that, so it's not just that it nips you and nothing happens. Of course, your hand won't fall off, but such reactions can occur, and generally, ladybugs in that case are really unpleasant, especially for people with allergies. That's my conclusion. Ladybugs and the current situation in Poland are what they are, with a high number of Asian ladybugs present. For now, there's nothing we can do about it because there's really nothing we can do, so it just has to be the way it is. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it, and see you next time. And the ladybugs are going to be released because I have no reason to do anything to them.